Brain Gain is sponsored by Southwoods Health, Farmers National Bank, Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition.
Hello and welcome to Brain Gain Navigators. I'm your host, Jeremy Leidick, Content Manager with the Business Journal. I hope everyone enjoyed their Halloween weekend. Thank you for attending the first of 3 Navigators webinars we have this month. Today we'll be exploring the engineering career path. Engineers and civil engineers have their fingerprints on just about everything in our communities, from the roads and bridges that we drive on to the treatment plants that bring safe drinking water into our homes. They design so much of what we use every single day. And from now until about 2026, the U.S. looks to add nearly 140,000 new engineering jobs. Civil engineers will actually lead the pack with about 32,200 of those jobs. And last year, the median annual salary for civil engineers was $88,570, so not too bad. But how does someone become an engineer? What inspires someone to follow the engineering career path? And what do they do every day? Joining us to answer those questions are engineers from MS Consultants from right downtown in Youngstown. We have Steve Preston and Joe Leeson, who are project managers with MS Consultants, and Jillian Penman, who is a graduate engineer with the firm. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining us. So a little bit later, our attendees will get to hear from our panelists who will be ready to answer any questions you have. So always be thinking about what you want to ask. But first, I want to play a video of our visit to the offices at MS Consultants, where we spoke with a number of the engineers who are working on projects right here in the Mahoning Valley, a few of which I'm sure you're going to recognize. So enjoy the video, and we will see you in just a few minutes.
Engineering is a field that is in high demand, and there's a lot of different avenues you could take with engineering.
Roads and bridges, or water, or wastewater, architecture, there's a lot of different opportunities.
People think, well, there's civil, mechanical, electrical. Just take civil like we are, for instance. Within civil, there's still, 5 or 6 different avenues you could go within civil engineering.
In your day-to-day life is never going to be the same.
I serve as the city engineer for the city of Canfield, and I work with some other local communities.
I have just traded in my role as a project engineer for the Director of Quality Management.
Started my internship back in May of 2019, yes. And then basically I just reached the next level after each year, and then fortunately they gave me the opportunity to work here full time.
I do a lot of bridge design, also design other structures like retaining walls, tanks, large concrete tanks for water treatment plants.
I was brought in as in the construction group and did some inspection out in the field, but when I expressed some interest to get into the design realm, they brought me into the water group here, and I started doing some smaller type designs, and really wanted to further my career and be in that leadership position. So I got a number of projects under my belt and then started managing my own projects.
I started off in construction inspection. I then moved into bridge inspection work, then became a bridge designer. I did that for a number of years, and then decided I wanted a more full picture of our whole career path, and so I moved into roadway engineering, and then that led me into project management.
The bigger companies, you have people that are just very specialized and pigeonholed into very specific things. Here at MS Consultants, I think everybody does a little bit of everything. You do what's needed. Every day is different. So from design through bidding, through construction, through management of staff, it makes it very interesting.
My grandpa always wanted me to be an engineer, and for the longest time I thought that he meant the guys that are on the railroads. But he was always he wanted me to go into the engineering field.
I was just one of those kids that would just step back and wonder how something was, or why something was built the way it is.
Ever since I can remember, I like taking things apart, seeing how things work, why, and understanding why they work.
As I was growing up, I had a pretty great imagination, and then I like putting things to life.
I knew I was probably going to be an engineer when I was in high school, just because of my interest in math and science.
If you're good in math and science, which that was kind of what led me to engineering. I was good at math and science, and it just kind of made sense.
Well, day to day, I'm overseeing the management of various projects that are going on in our community.
Any given day can be client meetings. I spend a lot of time out in the communities working on developing projects, getting input from administrations, and then we try to figure out how we're going to fund these projects.
Whatever deadline I have coming up first, we kind of prioritize which projects we're working on. Usually it's a week-by-week basis, not necessarily day-to-day. We plan out a little farther than that.
There's no such thing as day-to-day anything. Monday mornings are meetings. Once I get the Monday morning meetings out of the way, every single day is different. Pretty proud of every project that I'm involved in. The Phelps Street project downtown here, I know that that was recently completed.
Another project here locally that's at the forefront of everybody's attention is the Fifth Avenue project, so that's finishing up. So I was project manager on that project.
One of my favorite projects is the State Route 11 bridge in Canfield. It has spelled out in big letters Canfield.
A couple years ago, the city of Canfield got hit with a really big storm, and they had portions of the city that just got a lot of water, and it stayed, and it caused some damage. So we were able to secure a large grant for the city and to fix those problems. And so we're currently working on that design.
One of the very first projects I worked on was actually in my hometown. I'm from Poland, Ohio. One of the projects was the bridge in the Poland Municipal Forest.
That's the most gratifying part of being a structural engineer, is getting to see our design and our work come to fruition.
You take quite a bit of satisfaction when they're done. You can take a look back and say, hey, I was involved with that project from its inception.
In engineering, it doesn't always sound exciting. What I do, as a project engineer, I did utilities, so you can't see anything that I do. There's nothing fun. It's all underground. It's what I like to do. It's problem solving.
It's been a very rewarding field for me. I love the fact that I get to help communities and really make them a better place, and I hope leave them better than when I found it when I got there.
Don't be scared to try new things. Always be willing to step up and say, let me try that, let me do that, because you can learn from every experience every day.
The one biggest piece of advice that I give to a lot of people when they ask about engineering, and some people don't like it when I say it, but you have to be okay with failure. And I don't mean failure in the sense that you didn't accomplish something. Failure in the sense that you aren't going to know everything. You have to ask questions, you have to learn from mistakes.
If you really sit down and think about it, you entrust engineers with your life and your family and your safety so many times per day. If you think about how many bridges you drove over here today, to get here. An engineer designed every little part and piece of that bridge to make sure that it's going to last and it's going to hold. There's a lot of things we're entrusting engineers to in our day-to-day lives that you don't even think about, that you take for granted.
So now I'm going to open the floor to our attendees. And if they have any questions to ask of our panelists, they can either type them out in the Q&A box down at the bottom or in the chat box. Or if you wish, you can also click the raise hand icon down at the bottom, and I will give you an opportunity to actually voice your questions to the panelists yourself. It's totally up to you how you want to do it. I have a few icebreakers so I can kind of help get the ball rolling. And I guess we'll just start. We'll start with Joe. When did you decide to be an engineer? When did you decide to pursue that career path, and what led you to that decision?
Oh man, as back as early as I can remember, I wanted to do something in engineering. I always had an interest in why things were the way they were. I mean, going all the way back to even middle school, I've taken things apart, trying to put them back together or make them better, something like that. But I mean, it was kind of always a foregone conclusion. Even when I got to high school, my career path was always just, I'm doing some sort of engineering. So it was kind of set pretty early on that I was going that route. I was exposed to it, a lot of it. My dad's an engineer. So I have a family history there with the profession. So I was kind of always exposed to different odds and ends and things like that. But it was pretty early on. I knew that I wanted to go that route.
Steve, about the same for you?
Yeah, I honestly, in high school, I still wasn't sure really until my senior year that I wanted to go into engineering. I was torn between engineering and sports management, but I thought long term there'd be better career prospects in engineering, and I think that was the right decision for me. And I always loved math and science, so this was kind of always a potential track. It just, could I get away from sports? That was kind of where I was at in high school, but it was been a good decision.
How about you, Jillian? You're one of the newest engineers at MS Consultants. What led you to that path, and what led you to decide to work locally?
So what kind of led me down that path? So typically in high school, my strong suits were math and science, and then teachers would tell me, "Oh, you should study engineering." And I'm like, "What's engineering?" And then I kind of thought about it. And like when I was little, I liked thinking of things in my head and bringing them to life, using like Legos and stuff. So with kind of that mindset, I was like, how can I do this in real life? And the best field I thought was kind of civil engineering, because basically you design something on paper and then it comes to life. And I decided to work locally because, I interned at MS Consultants for a couple years, and basically I couldn't find a reason to leave, even though there's plenty of opportunities in bigger cities. Honestly, probably this company locally is one of the best in the nation as far as I know. So I didn't find a reason to move on, and it's convenient and it's cheaper. So that's why I chose to work locally.
The first question from our panelists: are there different paths for different types of engineers? In the video, it was, civil engineering was mentioned, but could you guys speak a little bit to just the varying types of engineers that there are? And I mean, is it a straight path for everybody, or like when does it kind of diverge?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, in terms of the general problem solving skills and the general math and sciences that you'll need. But I'd say probably up until your third year of college is when it really starts to differ. The easiest way that I can think to explain it, you have, chemical engineering is a lot of chemistry basis, civil engineering, like what we're doing, is a lot of static or stationary objects, bridges, roads, things that don't move as much. And, mechanical engineering is more moving pieces and parts, like a car or something like that. So, there are specialized classes that you have to take depending on which route you would want to go. But a lot of the similarities, from now even up to, like I said, your third year in college, I would think they're pretty similar.
Great. How much college or schooling did you folks need to qualify for your jobs? What's the point A to point Z amount of training you need to work and do what you're doing?
So for college, 4-year bachelor's degree, maybe 5. It just depends. A lot of math and science courses that go into getting that degree. But once you get out, you have to take the FE test, which is Fundamentals of Engineering. And that really helps get you on your professional path. It basically is a test, an 8-hour test that summarizes almost everything you've learned in college. Once you pass that, you have to wait 4 years, and then you can take your professional engineering exam. You need 4 years of experience for that, and that gets you your state license to kind of practice as a professional engineer, to stamp plans, to basically puts all the responsibility kind of on you. So to make sure that the projects that are going out are done right. But it's very worthwhile to have your professional engineering license in our field.
Another follow-up question to the last one. what are the different fields? Like what different fields do the different types of engineers work? So, Joe, you mentioned chemical engineers. What type of work would they be doing? Where would they be doing it?
There's a number of different places that, engineers can work, right? Both public and private sectors. But, some of the examples, they can work in steel mills or manufacturing facilities where they're molding plastics or developing new technologies, things like that, where they're trying to come up with better, better materials, I guess. They kind of experiment a little bit. Drug companies would have some chemical engineers, a lot of things go into the manufacturing of things like that. Mechanical engineers can work in a number of different places. Automotive companies, kind of like I mentioned. There are some private consultants that do building systems like heating and air conditioning, fans, different things like that mechanical engineers can work in. And civil engineers can work in private companies like MS Consultants, where clients hire us to design their roads and bridges and treatment plants, or there's even they work in the public sector where they work for the cities and municipalities and manage these different types of projects. So there's a whole array of where these different types of engineers can work, and a lot of times there's places engineers work that you wouldn't even think of.
Give me for example.
Oh, you can put me on the spot there. Boy, I can't think of it. Give me a minute. I'll think of a good one.
All right, we'll come back to that. So let's kind of dig into the building blocks of your pathways. What kinds of jobs did you folks have in high school or college? And did those jobs maybe help you achieve the skills you needed for your job, even in just the tiniest bit?
Personally, I worked at Giant Eagle, and that was enough for me to make sure I went and got my engineering degree. So I didn't to keep working like that. Not that there's anything wrong with Giant Eagle. It's a really good job for a high school student. But I kind of wanted to. It got me moving to make sure I went to college and got my degree.
Were there any maybe soft skills you picked up while working at the grocery store that kind of apply to your job now?
I think so. I think communication skills. At the Giant Eagle, you were constantly talking to people and throughout the day and client or customer interaction, those type of things, and that's really translated, especially in my role, Joe's role. We're out meeting with clients daily. You have to know how to talk to people. Myself, I have to present to city councils often, and so you could spend half your day talking to construction workers, and then you could spend the other half of the day talking to politicians, and you have to be able to communicate with everybody, in the spectrum there. So, that's translated for sure.
See, that's interesting. A layman like me would presume that engineers spend their entire day sitting at the drafting table and planning out the project, but it sounds like you're doing a lot of interaction in the communities, like you said, with local politicians. That's interesting.
Yeah, I would say at least 30% of my job is, maybe 40% is out meeting with people, not in the office all that often.
Got you. Okay. So what about now? What kinds of hobbies do you guys have? And how do those hobbies or things that you do in your spare time, did any of them actually relate to your jobs as engineers?
I have 2 young kids, so I don't really have any hobbies at the moment, to be honest. So I'm gonna have to defer to Joe and Jillian on that.
I guess from my perspective, I would say the hobbies more or less are volunteer opportunities. So I volunteered at the Oh Wow Children's Museum downtown, and that kind of translates to engineering because they're building different exhibits that almost resemble different kinds of engineering tools, and then they pretty much help children get interested in STEM. So, and I volunteered there once. And then there's also the American Society of Civil Engineers. They do different community service projects, and they bring other people in to teach us more about engineering. That's more or less kind of a volunteer opportunity. People are willing to sign up for it. So there's just different things around a community that kind of translate into engineering that you can be involved in.
That's really cool that, I mean, your work is already so heavily involved with the community, but you're still finding ways to volunteer and stay out in the community and get things done that way. That's nice. Very good. Um, so when it comes to climbing the ladder throughout your careers, I mean, how do you go from, what does that sort of entry level position look like? And then how does one climb the ladder, and what are some of those positions that you can hit at each rung?
Honestly, to make you the best engineer, I mean, you got to start with the simple tasks. Like I started in construction inspection, just watching people build things. You know, there wasn't really any design responsibility on my part, but making sure whoever did design it, the things got built right. So, you know, when you start understanding how things are put together, and then, you know, okay, now I know how to design something. Okay, they have to put it together in this manner. So you're the one telling them how to put it together now. And then you can climb up to being a project manager where, you know, you're managing a team putting something together, multiple teams putting something together to have somebody else build it. So it's like the next step or building block. And then, I mean, from there, it even goes even higher where you can become, you know, a business development person where you're going out and developing the projects and actually helping people understand there may be a need for a project here for somebody else to manage, for somebody to design, and somebody to build. So there's multiple rungs to the ladder. And I mean, depending on how high you can climb up, I even know that the president of our company started out as a construction inspector and a design engineer and now runs our entire company. So, I mean, there's, you know, many rungs that you can go up as high as you want or stay where you're comfortable with, or, you know, it's wide open to whatever career path you would want to choose.
Gotcha. And do you need to continue your training or get more schooling as you move forward in your career?
Depending on where you would like to, you know, eventually have your long-term goals, there could potentially be more training. You know, like Steve and Jillian mentioned before, you know, you're kind of your 4-year bachelor's degree and working towards your professional engineering license. You can do a lot of things in your career to have a very satisfying career. But if you want to, you know, maybe move up and manage a few more projects or manage teams or companies, then it may be beneficial to get a master's degree or a business, you know, a business tag onto your engineering degree to understand how that side of the profession works. But there's not a hard requirement, but it does help depending on which career track you would want to choose.
And once an engineer is ready to get out there and start working, are they only able to work for firms, or can they work independently? Are there union opportunities? What are the options there?
So you can work for private firms like MS. You can work for public entities like the Ohio Department of Transportation or the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. Some cities have an actual city engineer on staff. A lot of cities, especially locally, hire firms like MS to kind of function as their city engineer. I don't know that there's many union opportunities. That's more on the construction side of things, but from the engineering side, you have public and private options.
Great. Steve, what's your favorite part of your job?
I think the ability to kind of leave communities better than when we found them. If they're calling us, there's a reason they have an issue. In that video, Craig Malachek, who's one of our senior project managers, he mentioned, I'm blanking, completely blanking, but I'm just going to go ahead and move forward.
Do it.
The ability that we have to kind of help communities, help people, you know, the things that we provide, the services we provide help people day to day, and you might not even realize it, whether it's the water that comes to your house, when you flush the toilet, where that goes and gets treated. All of those things are things that, you know, people like us are touching daily. And, you know, it's just the opportunity that we get to give back to our community, I think is really, really special.
Jillian, how about you? What's your favorite part of your job?
I would say probably my favorite part is the people I work with. Honestly, after my internship, I wouldn't be here if I didn't enjoy the people I work with. I've learned a lot from them, and they've taught me, they've developed like my teamwork skills, and they treat me as one of their own. So I would say, yeah, it's definitely the people I work with. That's something to consider for sure when you're looking for a job, to see what their reputation is. And MS, I believe, has one of the best locally and probably nationally.
Gotcha. Very good. Joe, anything to add about what you like about the job?
Actually, yeah, and my comment would actually tie very next to the next question that came in about the burnout rate. But personally, my favorite thing about engineering is every day is different. There's no continued, like, I'm sitting here just, typing the same thing day in, day out for 8 hours a day, which I think helps with the burnout rate. If it's something new and a new challenge comes in, I think it reduces that burnout rate. Now, you're always going to have a little bit of that, but I think that goes a long way in keeping us all interested when you walk through the door and you honestly could have a plan and you do nothing on your plan that day because something else takes priority. And that happens quite a bit, which sometimes gets frustrating, but other times keeps it interesting.
So let's dig into that a little bit, the burnout rate. How do you sort of stave that off? How do you keep from hitting those doldrums?
I think one thing MS does that's really nice is they offer us flexible hours. So, there's core hours where they want you to be here, but for the most part, we're all professionals, and as long as your work's getting done, you don't have to sit in the building. Right now, we're on a hybrid kind of situation anyway, so a lot of people are getting the chance to work from home a couple of days a week, which I think really helps. And honestly, at the end of the day, just knowing that if you need to take a day just to kind of regroup and catch yourself a little bit and step away, like, that's okay here at MS. And I think that's really important because we're constantly on deadlines. We're constantly being challenged to kind of push the envelope in our designs and our projects. And so you just need to be able to take that time to step away when you need it.
Got you. And would you say you guys are working more individually or as a group?
For me, it's more of a group. Joe and I both are project managers, so we're constantly communicating all day with the engineers that are working on each of the different projects. We could have 10 to 15 different projects going on. Each of us have going on, so we're constantly communicating with a team. Here in the Youngstown office, we could be working with people in our Pittsburgh office, Columbus office, Indiana office. I mean, it's just constant communication. So, yeah.
And I know that we're coming up on 1 o'clock here. So participants, if you have any more questions, send them on in. But there's one that I always like to ask of our panels. And that's because we have so many students right now from middle school and high school who are watching these videos who might be interested in a career in engineering. How can they get started now exploring that career path? Are there job shadow opportunities, internship opportunities? What can they do now to kind of follow that path and get a little bit of experience, get sort of a taste?
Yeah, there's quite a few opportunities. One thing I would suggest, it's not even, before we get into some of the other stuff, if you're really interested in engineering now, never stop asking why. So even when fully understand a task at hand or fully understand what you're being taught or something like that, always be curious. That's very important. As far as some of the other opportunities, we typically do job shadowing days, more so in high school though, towards the junior senior year. We've done it for MCCTC. The group of students would come in and kind of sit with different engineers throughout the day and kind of see what they do, show them some of the projects we're working on, different things like that. We do internships as well, some high school internships, a lot of college internships or co-ops too. That's, how, like Jillian mentioned, that's how she got in with us too. So I did both. I did an internship when I was, high school and then, when I was in college as well. So there are opportunities out there like that. It's a matter of, finding them, being connected, talking with different people on if things are available like that. I mean, even if it's not an opportunity with us, other people do different opportunities. That's just kind of typically what we do. But yeah, that definitely stay interested and find that out there and see what you can, come up with.
I understand. I think there are a lot of clubs in schools too that I'm sure that students getting involved with those can get at least a taste of STEM stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, some of the different competitions, we are involved with not me personally, but I think Jillian, you've helped out about the Balsa Bridge competition, things like that. Did you help out with that
Yeah,
one?
there's the Balsa Wood Bridge. There's the Physics Olympics. I know YSU hosts. And then what else? There's math counts as well. I think that's typically middle school. But yeah, things like that just help solidify your interest in STEM in general. So I would encourage participating in this.
What did the participation look like when you were volunteering with those competitions, Jillian? Were there a lot of students involved?
I would say I never volunteered for the Physics Olympics, unfortunately, but for math counts, yes, there was plenty amount of people. I'm not sure how it was in 2020. I think it was still virtual, but in 2019, yeah, there was just wall-to-wall middle school students. So it was really neat to see.
All right, so I'll ask the $1 million question since no one else has asked it. On average, what can an engineer expect to make salary-wise, particularly if they're working locally or even within the region?
You know, coming out of college, you know, typically what I've seen is around 50,000 is probably your starting salary, 45 to 50. And then, I mean, you could, you know, go all the way up to 200,000, 175,000. It depends on what level you kind of end up at, but you'll definitely make a nice living. You know, one thing you'll have is all the benefits that come with that. You know, the 401k and the retirement, and you know, our company had an employee stock ownership program for a little while, so we were able to make some additional money through some ownership of the company. So that also helps invest employees in the day-to-day and trying to make profits, or I'm sorry, to make projects go really well to help the company. So, but yeah, I mean, I think starting out 45 to 50,000 is pretty reasonable for the Youngstown area.
And plenty of opportunities. Are there openings at MS Consultants right now? Are you guys hiring?
We are. There is a definite shortage of engineers in the market right now across the board, not just with MS Consultants, but if you look at the industry wide, everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's looking for talent. Everybody's looking for, you know, the next superstar engineers to bring in and help out on projects. Everything ranging from CAD technicians to project engineers to project managers, operations leaders, you name it. We have openings right now just with the influx of work and the shortage of engineers out there that, you know, are looking to come on board.
And with technology being what it is, that kind of broaden the scope of people who would be able to hop into the industry?
Yes and no. I wouldn't say necessarily the people, but location of where they are has definitely, you know, broadened where they have to be. You know, just because somebody's working with us in Youngstown, they don't have to be physically in Youngstown. You know, I think we have a couple people working remotely, like in New York right now for our company. But you know, I mean, as far as the type of person, you still need to have the educational background to understand why the different programs and the different technologies do the certain things. So I don't necessarily see that changing per se, but location definitely.
Well, plenty of opportunities for students watching to follow this path and find some good jobs whenever they graduate. It's now 1:04, and I don't see any other questions on the list. So I think now is a good place to close it. I want to thank our friends from MS Consultants for sitting in with us today on the panel. This was our first look at the engineering pathway, and got a lot of good information. So thank you guys so much for making time for us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Good luck.
Absolutely.
Everyone.
And thanks to everyone for attending. Like I said, we have 2 more Navigators webinars coming at you this month. The Entrepreneurship Navigator webinar happens next Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. I have a strong suspicion that no one watching this video got that reference, but that's totally cool. 12:30 on Monday, we will be here talking with Sweet Melissa's and PNC Bank about the entrepreneurship pathway. And then we have one more great webinar coming up the Monday after that. As always, you can watch all of our Brain Gain Navigators videos at businessjournaldaily.com/Brain Gain Youngstown. And that is all we got. Thank you all so much. Thank you, participants. Thank you, panelists. We'll see you next time.
Brain Gain is sponsored by Southwoods Health, Farmers National Bank, Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition.
Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell for notifications. And also make sure to connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. For all of your business news, visit businessjournaldaily.com. For all of your arts and entertainment news, go to afterhoursyoungstown.com.